Hello and welcome to the Attack Action Podcast. I am Colin Honigman. I'm joined by Isaac Jessen. We're here today to talk about Dromai. Isaac just won Road to Nats this past weekend, and we're bringing you an update to his deck tech. Isaac, how's it going?
It's going great. I took out a surprise win at Road to Nats. I played in 2 this weekend. And the first one I played Azalea. The second one I played Dromai. I managed to take it home with Dromai.
Nice.
I feel like this is like a regular segment on our podcast now. Is like Dromai updates.
Yeah.
You know, because I keep playing that hero. I'm addicted.
Exactly. Well, you're good at it. You enjoy it. You keep winning things with it. So we keep bringing updates. And today's deck tech, we're going to do a little bit different. In the past, we've done some really deep dives. Today, we're going to keep it a little short and snappy. You're going to sleeve this card up. You're going to jump in your car. You're going to listen to this on the way to your armory or your Road to Nats. And then you're going to win just like Isaac. So let's get right into it. Tell us real quick, like what kind of Dromai deck this is.
So this is more of a like control deck, right? So your game plan is to overwhelm your opponent through your board state and incremental advantages. It blocks really well, the threat density is very high, and you can be pretty patient with the deck.
So not like the Queen of Dragons deck, which is a bit more aggro-y, little dragons and funny attack action cards. This is a pure dragon deck with all your favorites in it. So we've got a few updates from your last deck tech. What changed this time? Why did you change it?
Now the premier aggro deck in the meta is Lexi. Playing against Lexi, it's better value for you to overwhelm her with your board state and be able to block better, right? So you're looking for these narrow windows to like play out a dragon, and then from then on you can attack with the dragon every turn, unless Lexi uses one of her 2 or 3 attacks that turn to kill your dragon. And if she does, then that gives you more breathing room. You had to block with less cards and are able to play out more dragons. So even though there is kind of an aggro deck in the meta, just the strategy Dromai uses to attack her is kind of a lot different, right? So I went away from the hybrid strategy. I took out all the 0 for 4s, as good as they are, and just ran more dragons essentially.
Any key dragons that came in, or any other kind of support cards along with that?
Yeah, Seeker's Mitts is huge, or Seeker's Leggings, if that's the configuration you run, because now you have a resource sink available at instant speed. So Dromai is able to go second with an Ash on deck. So that allows you in most matchups, probably except Guardian, you want to go second because you're able to pitch to create an Ash and still like block for 10 usually. So you don't really get punished for it. And you're able to like filter your hand a bit and start the second turn of the game with an Ash on deck. I also, just for like sideboard space, Passing Mirage is now mainboarded. Dromai is such a popular deck now that most players are playing some degree of poppers, and like drawing a Passing Mirage turn 0, or just like blocking for 9 and playing one, or just when it's convenient. It's not really a priority, but when it's convenient, playing a passing usually has like some degree of value into most decks you're going to face. I guess there are a few other additions I made, like Viserai is now in with Dust from the Red Desert. The Dust is for Oldhim, and it's like part of your win condition. And then Viserai is, just a solid dragon. I didn't used to run it because it's just another expensive dragon, but I also added one more blue main board just to like accommodate that. So now it's like 10 out of 60 cards are blue. That's like 1 every 2 hands. And I added 3 Uvias. They're excellent in the mirror. They're great against Guardian. They're great against Ranger. They're kind of great against everybody just because of the defensive nature of your deck. And Uvia having 6 health, it's like hard for your opponent to deal with it, and gives you like tiny bits of advantage the longer it stays out. it's gone down markedly since Oldhim's now run Anothos into Dromai, since they can just swing and kill it with their weapon rather than having to like hold and use a large attack or whatever one they have available. But it's still like when you play Uvia out, it still makes an Ashwing and her, right? So 2 dragons for 1 card and kind of saves you 6 health because they have to hit her anyway. So still good value, just not quite as much as it used to be. Anyway, those are some of the new cards, and we can talk about them more as they come up.
Great. All right. So, what are like the main strategies and win conditions for this deck, generally speaking?
Yeah, board presence, essentially. Sometimes it borders on kind of fatigue. I now run all 6 D-React Sinks and Fates and 3 Sand Covers and 3 Oasis Respites, because I found that against Azalea, you can kind of get run over if you only have like 6 D-Reacts. And the fact that 6 out of 12 of your like pseudo D-Reacts are instants allows you to get around Dominate that much easier, like if you draw them in hand. So I've found that with all 12, you can certainly beat Azalea earlier in the game, but except against Guardian or Oldhim specifically, your win condition in this deck is board presence, value out of dragons. And because of the blocking power of the deck and the fact that once you have, if your opponent gives you 1 window to play a dragon, then that dragon is going to get more and more value the longer it's out.
All right. So let's get into like matchups and sideboards, but real quick, what is kind of your main approach to sideboarding in general? Like how many cards are in the core? And then what are you kind of thinking about when you're bringing stuff in from the sideboard?
Sure. It's kind of more streamlined than it used to be because it's not so much of a hybrid list anymore. I have technically 51 cards main board, and then, you can bring in 9 or more. And it kind of just comes down to how defensive or aggressive you want to be, like what your role is. Like against Dash, I'm the aggressor. So I'm going to bring in, CNC and maybe Optimi or, whatever. Against decks where I'm likely going to block out, bring in more defense reactions. But most of the time, these 9 cards will be like Sinks, Fates, and Command and Conquer. Will be the 9 to fill it out. Against Oldhim in an untimed match, I'm bringing in like maybe every card. Yep. Yeah, every card.
Easy. We love it. All right. So
yeah, keep it simple.
Yeah, exactly. So let's start talking about matchups, but let's start with the kind of meta heavy presence. We've talked about it a little bit, but let's kind of just like get into specifics of Lexi, like what cards are coming in, and then what are you looking to do to her?
Sure. Yeah. So Lexi is not as favored for Dromai as you would think. Against Lexi, I'm bringing in Fates and Sinks and CNC. And this matchup is tough, right? You want to go second.
Okay.
Because the fuseless Lexi has less cards. She can double Arsenal. Usually they'll just Arsenal an arrow and, pass. And then they get a 3 arrow hand, but you get first real swing at the game with your Seeker's Mitts Ash having been created. But yeah, Lexi's a lot to handle. The pressure is pretty constant. So it's important to know when to just full block out and, when to get your little windows, right? Oftentimes you'll be looking at, I could play Viserai and CNC and it'll be awesome. But you're like staring down like, 17 damage or something. And the reality is you can like block everything out and just wait for them to have like a bit more of an off turn. And that's kind of what you're looking for. It's possible to get high rolled, but there are these windows in the game. And then once you have a dragon out, you're like good to go. They probably do run like 3 to 6 poppers. So taking a huge gamble on like playing Necria is not really worth it, right? Like you don't want to put yourself in a losing position if if your dragon gets popped.
Totally.
So, but you can still play Rake and you get 3 Ashwings, and then you play a Yendurai or something. Those are all really hard for her to deal with, and they're going to constantly get value for you. And, attacking with the Ashwings first, they take damage if they want to pop your bigger dragon or whatever. And, using a popper still uses a card out of her hand. So there are a few other things like using your armor early is kind of fine because you're just going to get freaking drill shotted later. So you might as well like use it now when it's pertinent, or you can like use it on the first drill shot or whatever. But, it's important not to use your furnace and then have it get drill shotted that turn because they can kill it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just be patient,
Be patient and don't be afraid to use your equipment early. I love that. All right, let's talk about the old man who won't be around for much longer, but still, I assume, is going to be annoying. What are you bringing in? I assume, is it always just you're going second? Like, second's always just better?
You want to go first against Oldhim.
You want to go first? Okay, great. So we're going first.
Yeah.
How many cards are you running? What are you bringing in?
You're running all 72 cards.
Woo!
And Ghostly and Mage Master. So now you're running 2 Remembrances, so things change a little bit from where I used to be. You're playing out your turns. You're trying to preserve your life to where you can use it as a resource later. The game's going to be really long, so you want to be able to trade or use your life instead of blocking when it comes up. And then you kind of play out cards to try to chip damage, force some tempo, strip cards out of their hands. You're kind of trying to chip and like ease the pressure off you. So in this way, like playing out Miragai and Uvia and these kind of dragons are fine because you can Remembrance. Remember that you have 6 cards you can get back, right? So, and one of them has to be Tomotai. So, if you block with Optimi, or you play out all your Miragais, or you use a burn them all or block with them, like you need these cards back. So don't block or use more than you can Remembrance back in, right? And so on this first cycle, you have a bit of homework to do, right? You're thinning your defense reactions and instants out of your deck while using them to preserve your life, right? Like you're trading your D-reacts and stuff for their like spinal crushes, etc. You need to save probably at least 3, but like probably 5 blues, because later on you're going to pitch stack your Optimi play and you're going to pitch stack your Ghostly Touch play. So you need X amount of blues in the deck for that. Most Oldhims run like Nullrune Boots and just have AB1 and Crown of Seeds. So if this is the case, I Tomotai their Crown first to like trip them up better. And then when I Remembrance Tomotai, then I'll get their Nullrune. You need to keep at least 2 Viserai's in deck. You need to play out your 2 Dust of the Red Deserts and your Time Snap Potion ideally. And you need to make Ash, right? Like playing Sweeping Blow into CNC is great. Playing Sweeping Blow, then attacking with an Ashwing, getting those counters up. Oh yeah, that's the last thing. Got to get counters up on your Ghostly Touch, obviously. Then once your 2 Remembrances are played out, and you have these cards in your deck, and your Dust of the Red Deserts are out, etc., you have kind of like a variety of win conditions, and they all kind of like function together. So you can play out 2 Viserai's without Phantasm, which is really powerful. I don't know if I've ever been able to play them out together, which would be awesome. But you can still, like, if you play out Chromai, Miragai, Viserai without Phantasm, then you can like have a pretty powerful turn, and then they have to like kill your Miragai or Vinny, and then you still have 1 to like keep overwhelming them the next turn. Having at least 2 Burn Them Alls out and enough red cards just chips 2 damage a turn. And oftentimes you'll need that damage. Like they'll be at too high of a life total for you to like kill them in other ways. Like if you get to your end state and they can just take your ghostly touch or block for 9 and save a card and then kill passing the next turn, then you like lose the game, right? So things like Optimi and Ghostly only work if they're at a low enough life total. So having at least 2 burn them alls gets you there. Sometimes I'll use one of them earlier after Crown's gone, because if they want to stop the arcane, it strips a whole another card from their hand and they don't have like a resource sink for the rest of their resources. So sometimes like that's worth the pressure, but usually you need at least 2 late. So then after you've chipped them down like this and like established a bit of a board state, yeah, your win condition looks like, you know, one turn will be like play Mirage, play Chromai, play Azalea, play Passing Mirage or something. Then on their turn, they only have 1 action point and can only clear 1 thing. And then you're going to do it again, right? So overwhelming them this way to where you can still have huge turns is like, I mean, you can just straight up win that way if your pitch stack is good enough. After that, you have your Optimi pitch stack, which is you pitched a Mirage and Optimi and 2 blues. So the Mirage is an arsenal, and you're able to play out Mirage and Optimi, and then you pitch stack to reds after it. So you swing for 6, no Phantasm, and 6 arcane, which is huge. And on their turn, they have to kill Optimi or kill Mirage. And if they kill Mirage, which they probably should, then you get to swing with Optimi again for 6 more arcane, ideally. Sometimes there's some blues in that second hit, which sucks. But, you know, that's like quite a lot of damage and gets them down there. After this, you have a hand coming up with like at least 2 blues, but like probably like 3 blues, one of them being a passing. So then you can either time snap or
Mage Master.
Mage Master into passing into Ghostly Touch. Sometimes you can time snap then, so then your Ghostly Touch has go again, and you can like attack them with any dragons you have left on the board, and that ought to do it. I know that's a lot, but it like takes kind of all of that.
Nice.
I just had a top 8 game against Oldhim, and it lasted like at least an hour and a half though. So doing all of that within time is like really, really difficult.
Totally.
And throughout the game, you can like sometime if I'm just dying, right, I'll just like block or whatever, and then I'll just play Passing Mirage. You can get it back later with Remembrance. You only technically need 1 for later. It's better to have all of them, but then they have to kill it, right? They can't just keep attacking you and leave it on the board. So it'll buy you like a whole turn of a bunch of cards in your hand.
Nice.
So, you know, sometimes using that as kind of a safety valve is like, okay, it is a fluid approach. But anyway, sorry, I know that was a freaking mouthful, but
that's the hard one.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I think that's just the way it goes. Let's talk about kind of the new kind of up and coming fan favorite Uzuri. I see a lot of people trying this deck out. No clear approach on the deck building, but curious what kind of your thoughts are when you're presented with this opponent.
So this is pretty favored for Dromai, fortunately. I don't have a ton of reps into it, but it has always seemed favored. You know, you just defend really well. So their Uzuri shenanigans don't have as much of an effect against you, and you're able to you know, get less punished. It's always a game of patience. They have a lot of poppers, so going all in on a play is like not what you're trying to do, right? What you're trying to do is like play Rake and Uvia and then chip them down. And if they're swinging their weapons at Ashwings or like popping Ashwings or, you know, using their poppers, which are kind of their threats also, you're able to just like play out more. The one thing I will say, so my most difficult Uzuri opponent had like actually quite an aggressive deck, which kind of surprised me. I was still able to, you know, get the win, but just be aware that that's like definitely a possibility. Like there was no way this was going to fatigue. It was, you know, It was a lot to handle. But there is a possibility of them playing like kind of fatigue Uzuri and like having a ton of poppers and trying to like run you out of threats and attack your dragons. So just being aware that if they are not really pressuring you and just seeming to like try to deck you, being aware that like a pitch stack, might be where you want to be. Like it'll oftentimes go to second cycle and just like not playing out all your cards and then running out of threats, I feel like is like a way you could lose. In that match, Ghostly Touch could be like pretty valuable, even if you don't pair it with a passing play. But like if their deck is out of poppers, you don't need to take away Phantasm. You can just hit them with it later and for like 12 or whatever. But I didn't have like Seeker's legs in the list, so I could have run the boots and just popped them. I just kind of ran into like a weird equipment thing where I wanted to be able to make Ash, but I was like, do I use Ghostly Touch? Anyway, so that's yet to be determined, but like I might recommend Ghostly and the boots because you can use the boots to make Ash.
Gotcha.
On your first turn if you want.
For the sideboard, are you just bringing in the defense reactions in Command and Conquer?
Yeah, I brought in all 12 and CNC.
So Oasis, Respect, and Sand Covers as well?
Yeah. I don't remember if I brought in Dust or not. I don't think so. But I didn't bring in Remembrance because I thought that was plenty. And Remembrance like doesn't block and is weird and messes up your pitch stack and stuff. But I was at 51, and then I brought in 15 cards. So I was at 66 cards because it can be like essentially Arakni, right? If they're running like all of those decking you cards, so it's like kind of the more the better, really.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about the mirror.
Sure. I have very little competitive experience in the mirror, unfortunately. I mean, I've like played it in practice plenty, but I continuously build my deck to be good in the mirror also, and have not faced a lot of Dromais. But
lucky you.
Yeah. As always, it's just like whoever has the board state wins essentially. So you're bringing in as few D-reacts as possible. Like CNC's, Dracona Optimi, Remembrance, all come in, and yeah, you're just trying to like, that's part of the reason I have 3 Uvias. That's really good in the mirror. Rake's really good in the mirror. Like Blue Dust Up. I mean, Blue Dust Up could very well be Blue Embermoth Centipede, but I just have Blue Dust Up specifically because of the mirror, because it's like better for that matchup. I always just prioritize my board state, unless it's like they have no board state and it's, I mean, you can block sometimes, but it's like oftentimes you're not blocking and playing out more dragons. Dromais do run some poppers sometimes, so try to kill other dragons before you attack them, obviously. Azalea is kind of an all-star, because if they play a Rake and then you play an Azalea, you just slaughter their Rake, and the Rake's like the best card in the matchup. So I definitely would either pitch or Arsenal Azalea if you're not going to get full value out of it, rather than just like play it. Like if neither of you have any dragons on the board and you just play out Azalea, it's kind of a waste of value, because they're just going to kill it, and then they're have more Rakes than your Azaleas.
Any other like notable like MVP dragons in the mirror, you think?
Necria, 100%, because Necria's wording specifically is not hits a hero, so you can use Necria to kill their dragons and make yourself Ash, and then when they go to kill Necria, it makes you more Ash. I find oftentimes in these games, in order to kind of blow out your opponent, you can like burn up all your Ash, and it seems that often somebody is kind of ahead in Ash. Like somebody will have 1 or 0 and somebody will have like 4, and you're in so much more or better of a position if you have excess Ash, and Necria just does that for you. Necria is the best.
Nice. Let's kind of step through some other heroes. And let's just like keep it to a couple thoughts on, what you're thinking about sideboard wise, and if there is any like notable strategy change. But we'll keep it a little more brief, just I feel like some of these heroes are getting played too much, but I'm curious all the same. So I'm gonna go in alphabetical order just because it's easier to keep track of what we talked about. So we'll talk about
Deal.
Arakni.
Same as Uzuri.
Great, love it.
Although easier.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think anyone's worried about that one. Azalea.
Yeah, Azalea is part of the reason the Oasis Respites are also in. She's like very aggressive and can like definitely kill you. Just good exchanges, right? If they're burning a million red cards and you can block out and take 2 damage, awesome. You can play a dragon later, If they're swinging for 7 and you can block with 2 cards and play out a dragon, perfect. That's what you want to do when they had their off turn. Just patience. You'll definitely win. I haven't lost to an Azalea since I use all 12 reacts.
All right, Bravo.
Bravo's the same as Oldhim, with an increased likelihood of them being aggressive and the game not going to your end state, kind of. So you play it the same, but because of Bravo's dominate and maybe increased pummels and stuff, you certainly prioritize arsenaling a D-react.
All right, Briar.
Yeah, it's just Fate, Sinks, and CNCs. You can often find windows where you kind of get an advantage, and the more mid-rangey decks run more poppers, but they threaten less. Like, you're fine with that. If they're hyper aggro, they run less poppers, and so your windows like pay off more, I guess. Rosetta's really good at killing 2 health dragons and sending 2 arcane at you, but somebody like Yenderai or Miragai or any dragon with over 2 health is a bit more resilient. They're still just gonna like scar for a scar it or whatever, but at least that's damage you're not.
How about Dash?
Dashes play way differently, so it's hard to tell what kind of dash you're going to be up against. But in my experience, the way that Dash beats you is by getting to their end game with like the pistol plan, so they can swing for like 4-4-4 or 5-5-5 or 4-4-4, whatever, and that's pretty gnarly. They can clear your board really easily or overwhelm you, kill you in like a few turns. So because of that, you're essentially the aggressor. If they're boosting away their whole deck and just coming at you with cards and like not playing out items, it's still fine to block. It's not like a pure race, right? Like, be smart. Like, this costs them 8 cards out of their deck and I can block all the damage. I'll just block. But, be smart when you block, right? Like, if you think they're being aggressive and they play out 2 cards and you block them, make sure you save the cards that if they use their last 2 cards in hand to play out an item, you're not like, oh shit, now I'm stuck with these, right? Like, make sure you saved the 2 cards you want to be able to play.
Nice. Dorinthea.
So it's harder to beat Dory now because I have less cards that chip them first cycle because I have less attacks, but it's still kind of the same. Like, you're going to block out and run them out of threats and pitch stack. First cycle, you can play out 1 3 health or less dragon a turn and attack them with it. Chip them down while blocking. When you're getting close, so you need to like very closely manage your like health and cards left in deck. So when you're getting close to your pitch stack and you have like low 20s something, 24 cards left in deck and 30 life or whatever, then you pivot and you play out huge board states. So they're going to clear 2 dragons a turn with Dawnblade and get a bunch of counters, but it doesn't matter because in order to do that, they can't block very much and you can attack them with dragons over and over again. If you play out big health dragons early, they're just going to get counters on Dawnblade and then you won't be able to block them and they'll get more counters and then you'll just lose. Even if they get 1 counter, then they can just hit a dragon to keep it. So it's like, it's it's pretty good when your game plan's going, but if they just blow you out once, it gets pretty tough, as it does with Dory.
Yeah, for sure. What about Fi?
Fi is still really tough.
Yeah,
And maybe even tougher with the setup. I mean, you do block better, but
totally.
I don't know, can't win them all.
Yeah. Iyslander, I mean, I guess she's still around, but she's kind of out of the meta, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, I have less blues now. There's 11 and 2 yellow remembrances. You do have Oasis, Respite, and Sand Cover. It's, it's still a good matchup. You do need reps on it, right? You can't just be like stupid and greedy and be like, oh, this is easy, I'm going to win, because they like chip you down really fast. They can definitely get you. So, keep it tight.
Nice. Kano?
So I don't have Thamai because I don't have room.
Bless your heart.
Yeah. But you have Oasis Respite, Sand Cover, Rakes that give you AB, and Tomotai. So that's like a lot of cards you want to see that pretty much let you beat Kano. Basically, if I thought there were going to be a lot of Kanos, I would run Thamai and more AB maybe.
Katsu.
Katsu's tough. Winning my road to Nats, I was fortunate that I did not face a Katsu, because that might be like a 25-75 match or something. I mean, it's winnable for sure. You can kind of fatigue them. So you're going to block and make good exchanges still. Play dragons when you can. Just keep in mind that your dragons have less value. Their Kodachis are like hyper efficient to get rid of them and then get hits. And oftentimes dragons will equate to your opponent getting a card. Just keep that in mind when you're calculating your exchanges, right? It's like still good to play like Necria or Viserai or something, but it's really easy for them to kill all of these and then draw cards in order to, then attack you, which makes it really difficult.
All right, let's talk about the brutes together, because I feel like any Levia right now is pretty much just wearing an old or Rhinar costume.
Yeah. So brute is pretty much the same strategy as Guardian, although it like never goes to the ghostly touch play. It's essentially what happens. Your top priority is to get a D-React or instant in Arsenal because of the Intimidate mechanic. This deck really wants to block and bide its time and choose which cards. And Rhino takes all of that away, right? Burn them all is really good. They'll almost never block the Arcane. If they block the Arcane and use a Popper, then they're down to like 2 card hands, which is just like 6 vanilla damage, and you're just loving playing that game. So Burn them all is pretty good. Oftentimes you'll hit second cycle and kind of almost run them out of poppers, or they'll get bad hands just because they want to both use their poppers on your dragons and play them. I mean, it's scary, but I haven't lost to a Rhinar in ages.
Yeah, for sure.
Despite how scary it is.
Any words for Riptide? I'm not sure if you've had to play any yet.
I mean, no offense, Riptide. He's very good into like Lexi and his niche, but the traps don't work on you, and without that, he's just like a worse ranger.
Yeah.
Boltyn's pretty easy. You can just like maintain, like keep a high life total. Like odds of you killing them before they combo are pretty low. So keeping a higher life total and developing a board state is, you're fine. Like even if they pull off the combo, they're not going to kill you, and then you're just favored. When I say these games are favored, still keep it tight.
Yeah,
play a smart game, but
that's the Isaac Jessen way. Keep it tight.
Yeah.
All right. Lastly, Viserai.
Viserai is really tough, and I'm bummed people are playing him again. Just, it's kind of the same deal. Like you can still win through like patience and picking your windows and like blocking well when you can, but it's tough. It's like the Arcane and Rosetta make it really hard. It's harder than against Briar, just because of that.
Are you running?
So yeah, that matchup is tough.
Null Rune boots, and then the standard sinks, fates, CNCs.
Yeah.
Cool. Boom. And that's it.
Yep.
Now you're ready
Nice.
for wherever you're headed to. You've got Isaac's latest and greatest winning Dromai deck list. Isaac, thanks for walking us through this. I feel like every time I'm learning something, even though we've probably spent like 5 hours just doing these deck decks. But it's an interesting and fascinating hero, and I think that speaks to you as a pilot of it.
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we have previous like deck techs on Dromai on the channel that talk about, they kind of go in depth into different matchups and sideboards. And even though the list is outdated, a lot of these like matchups, the strategy has not changed much, or, the play lines are still the same or whatever. So if you have more time and are more interested, those videos are not outdated.
Yeah.
They're just, the list is a little different.
Yeah. You go into a lot of like the nuances of using the equipment and, a lot of very specific details on things. So check those out as well. We'll put those in the description. They're on YouTube, but we're going to release this on the podcast channel as well. So all of our audio files can just listen to this rather than trying to watch YouTube on their phone while driving to their RTN. So you're welcome.
Yeah, just listen to it on the way to RTN and no problem.
You got this. Well,
smash everybody.
Good luck, everybody.
I do have one last tip I thought of. I kept Snapdragon scalers in the list, even though I'm not running all those 0 for 4s, because you don't really have any better boots, mostly. But blocking with your whole hand and playing red dust up into snaps into all your dragons is just a really, really strong play. It starts out with a hit effect, physical real damage, and gives everything go again. So, if you hate it, you can find room for 2 Toma Findals and just run the Mage Masters. But I keep snaps for that reason.
Nice. I love that. That's some big brain play right there. Awesome. Well, Isaac, thanks again. Thanks everybody for listening. If you like it, please like and subscribe, share it with a friend. Good luck at your road to Nats or wherever you're headed, and we'll see y'all soon.
Thanks, Colin. Good luck, everyone.